announcing the arrival of the Honourable Dato'Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia.
My first 6 months in office was a baptism of fire. We had to endure the strong opposition at that time, and now we are politically very stable. We use that stability to introduce reforms in the country. And clarity of policies is, to me, very fundamental. That includes the Industrial Master Plan, or the Energy Transition Roadmap, or Semiconductor Strategy, and a number of various other policies that would be able to spearhead the new direction for the country. And we have built camaraderie, friendship, and strong bonds within ASEAN. So once I assume the chairmanship of ASEAN, things becomes very easy because we're dealing with not only leaders in neighboring countries, but strong, trusted friends. ASEAN remains, is considered to be one of the most peaceful sub-regions in the world. 700 million people. And the fastest growing economy in the world. We have absolutely no serious issues with our neighbors. So purely the focus is business, investments, and trade. So our, again, trajectory has been shaped by embracing innovation, global trade, human capital development. So back to business. So thank you very much.
The Prime Minister has nicely framed the resurgence of Malaysia. Political stability, economic growth. It will be above 5% for 2024, and as we look into 2025, we're looking again to be north of 5%, driven by technology, driven by healthcare, driven by political stability and fiscal responsibility.
Yes, the investments is critical. The high technology is still there in Europe or United States or China, but we need to make sure that we do take into consideration the national requirements. That's why the focus on training and talent is paramount.
Thank you for sharing your vision and that sense of urgency that we all feel in driving just transition for Malaysia. If we could have a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Okay, so this is what the Prime Minister talked about earlier. What is our aspiration? What is economy Madani? In a nutshell, it's about raising the ceiling and also raising the floor. You heard about fiscal policy. Later you heard more about that from Johan, and then from the Governor, we'll be talking a bit about monetary policy. But as a whole, we are trying to ensure that economic growth that we have achieved thus far in the past 2 years is sustained, right? We heard about minimum 5% growth, hopefully this year. Governor, correct me if I'm wrong. But we want to sustain this further because, we have a plan. The plan is to be top 30 largest economies in the world by the year 2030, but more importantly, looking at the productivity, making sure that that growth that we achieve is a growth that's inclusive, a growth that's equitable, a growth that is resilient, of course, a growth that is also sustainable. So this is where we look at all aspects of the economy. Can I invite Dato'Omar to the stage?
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning. I am delighted to be able to have this conversation with the Investment and Trade and Industry Minister, the Honourable Zafrul Aziz. It has been an eventful time under your watch. We have seen, as outlined in your speech, and as well, of course, in the Prime Minister's speech, that Malaysia has put through a comprehensive, cohesive, and coherent sort of economic plan. And that's been supported by some of the progressive measures that you have done under the ministry that you lead. I think one of the core things that you've done, I think, is obviously the new Industrial Master Plan and IMP 2030. But before that, just to reflect quickly again on Prime Minister Anwar's Madani economic framework, which essentially is about uplifting income levels through broad-based economic growth and investment, as well as supported by socio-economic and fiscal reforms in a real and meaningful way. Now, you've obviously put through the NIMP as a core policy platform about increasing Malaysia's economic and industrial complexity, increasing the accelerating digitization and technological adoption by industries, and also ensuring economic sustainability through higher wages, better jobs, and of course, environmental stability.
Very good summary.
Sorry?
Very good summary.
Thank you. I've learned a lot, I was paying attention. But also, of course, I think you also have this other sort of set of policies, the National Semiconductor Strategy, the Green Investment Strategy, Circular Economy Policy Framework, etc. For me, the upshot of all of this and the tireless and continuous effort of you, Minister, and your team in engaging investors, stakeholders, and industry is that Malaysia remains a key investment destination for Southeast Asia, if not Asia as a whole. Evidence of this is, for example, in 2023, Malaysia recorded $40 billion in foreign direct investment, and as reported for the first half of 24, but $15 billion US. Now, for the same period, this was matched as well with the mobilization of domestic direct investment to the same amount or more or less. All of this taken together would create tens of thousands of highly skilled and highly paid jobs for Malaysia.
What's important to me is that the policies that we have announced translates into the outcome that we want to have, right? Sometimes we tick the box by saying we've done it without seeing what the outcome is. So today, for this government, the Prime Minister has put a lot of focus on ensuring that whatever policies that we have announced translates not just into action, but also into outcomes.
You've heard a little bit from Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and also even Minister Zafrul with regards to the Economy Madani framework. And let me just put it in a perspective in terms of three pillars. And one is really in terms of this commitment to reform, which you've heard from the Prime Minister, very much anchored in terms of reforms on governance and also fiscal. The second one, if you heard part of the Economy Madani, is this sense of raising the ceiling, which is very much a drive towards quality growth. And then third is in terms of raising the floor, which is to ensure that the prosperity generated is enjoyed inclusively. In terms of the reform agenda, the Prime Minister 2 years ago came in on a platform of combating corruption. There have been many reforms undertaken, strengthening the Parliament as an institution, as check and balance, parliamentary or legislative changes, even to strengthen the function of audit to follow the public money. And in terms of, you've heard also about, in terms of what he meant about reform on fiscal, this included, for example, in the public delivery system, transition, especially on government procurement, ensuring that we move away from direct negotiated towards open tenders, and also in terms of rationalization of agencies. And this rationalization of agencies is not just in terms of trying to reduce fiscal costs, but very much in terms of also how to improve the public service delivery system. In fact, one of the initiatives taken up under Minister Zafrul was a consolidation on our investment promotion agencies. Currently, we have more than 20, increasingly, earlier had the MIDA CEO. How do we ensure that we have at least a single point of contact, especially in terms of engaging investors, particularly in this increasingly competitive environment with global uncertainties. And I think the other one, is, especially in this space, is just also the rationalization towards ensuring that we're more competitive and in terms of focus towards ease of doing business. The last on this is really in terms of fiscal reform. And you've heard also from Minister Zafrul, where for quite a while, actually, in the Ministry of Finance, we've had this idea of a Fiscal Responsibility Act, FRA commitment. The draft has been sort of loitering around in the corridors of the Ministry of Finance, but not many ministers want to cede power to the Parliament. And obviously, this is part of the commitment of the Prime Minister. Coincidentally, he was also Minister of Finance in the 90s, and it was only back when he was Minister of Finance in the 90s where he had a balanced budget. And so part of this is this commitment towards the medium term, where we have a commitment in the medium term to achieve deficit of 3% or lower, debt of 60% of GDP or lower, and also financial government guarantees of 35% or lower. In terms of raising ceiling, in terms of quality growth, I mean, you've heard a little bit already from Minister Zafrul in terms of driving the National Industrial Master Plan. We're working obviously very closely between the Ministry of Finance and MITI, Ministry of International Trade and Industry, in terms of having a new incentive framework. And Minister also mentioned this idea of a scorecard to ensure that our incentives are linked not just to a value of investments. Even the Prime Minister spoke about, we're now very attractive for data centers given our competitive cost of electricity and water. What we want to ensure is that if they come in, it must be also linked with value add, whether it's linked to AI, whether it's linked to local supply chain spin-offs. And hence, in Budget 2025, one of the announcements was this new scorecard or framework for ensuring that the incentives are correlated with attracting quality investments. I just close basically in terms of highlights of Budget 2025. It's very much consistent with the overall framework of the economy Madani in terms of one, about reforms. Again, Prime Minister's, I think, impatient to drive in reform, particularly in terms of fiscal and governance to ensure that there is meaningful change during this administration, and raising the ceiling or revitalizing the economy to ensuring that there's quality growth and investment, not just in terms of attracting large FDI, but also promoting domestic direct investments, including down to the small and medium enterprises. But last and not least, obviously, ensuring that growth also is inclusively benefiting also to then support domestic consumption as a key lever for domestic growth, and continuing to invest fiscally in terms of basic infrastructure, health and education.
Let me just share some insights in terms of on Malaysia's economic landscape and also prospects. I want to start with an overview of the Malaysia's economic stability, economic landscape. I believe our economic stability is actually anchored by strong fundamentals, and this is due to our track record of carefully navigating the ever-changing global economic landscape and consistently reinventing ourselves to transition to higher value-added activities and sectors. And today, the economy is highly diversified with multiple engines of growth, and we are confident to say that the economy is currently firing on all cylinders. This makes for an agile and dynamic landscape for growth as we go forward. Malaysia's vibrant financial markets are also one of the most vibrant in the region, with deep and liquid markets that actually complement our robust financial system. Our external sector has also been strong. While we have been successful in creating a sound domestic economy, we recognize that Malaysia, as with other economies, would have to adapt to the challenges posed from external uncertainties. Therefore, it is paramount that we are able to tap on global demand through quality product offerings. I think Minister Zafrul touched this morning about this, and including on the highly diversified nature of our market. And over the years, we have actually been able to reduce over-dependency on a single economic sector and also specific trade destination, and thus able to mitigate the risks associated with market fluctuations. With the diversified economy providing us with the multiple engines of growth, over the past decade, the Malaysian economy grew on average by 4.3%. And this, if you look in terms of where it is, it does surpass the ASEAN countries, which growth average about 3.6%. Despite the external headwinds, Malaysia's economy continues to be highly resilient. In fact, we saw a pickup in economic momentum and even revised our earlier 2024 growth estimates. Initially, we estimated growth to be between 4 to 5% at the beginning of last year, but as we see the first 3 quarters, growth has been very forthcoming. In fact, the first 3 quarter growth recorded about 5.2%. And for last year onwards, I think as a whole, we believe will be in the within 5% growth. One important point I want to highlight is that the robust domestic demand has actually safeguarded our economy against external shocks. A cornerstone of this domestic demand is really Malaysia's strong labour market and income prospects. Malaysia has one of the most stable and lowest long-term unemployment rate of about 3% compared to the ASEAN median of 4.5%. In fact, you look at the latest unemployment data as of November, it's at 3.2%, and it's lower than the level that we record during the pre-pandemic of 3.3%. Hence, to investors in the room, Malaysia presents a wealth of opportunities, and the return on FDI between 2021 to 2023 averaged about 12.8%, and is higher than what we saw between 2015 to 2019, which was at 10.3%. And this level is notably higher than what we saw at the ASEAN rate of return of FDI, which averaged about 7.7%. And similarly, the domestic bond market also recorded steady inflows from foreign investors, amounting to about $5.5 billion in 2023, compared to an average of about $3.5 billion between 2020 and 2022. We are coming from a position of strength. Our growth is strong, our inflation is stable and low, and our external position is healthy. The era of economic transformation is really upon us, and Malaysia is embracing it with open arms. We are not merely adapting, we are elevating our game to a whole new level. We have three areas that we'll be focusing on. First is sustainability, and this in terms of how do we encourage or mobilize financing to support the climate or green projects in the region, not just in Malaysia, but also in the region itself. Second, in terms of payment connectivity, I think to leverage on what we have achieved thus far, we want to push this ahead. I think we've got very good connectivity in terms of payments with a few countries in the region, Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand, for example. You can even just use your mobile phone for QR code payment, and this would definitely encourage economic activity in the rest. So we'll push ahead on this.
Put in an advertisement for CIMB and Maybank, because they're regional banks, and now you can go
QR code.
shopping in the region using the QR codes for the respective two banks.
That's the second area that we're focusing on. Third, in terms of really strengthening our regional financial safety net, our CIMB initiative, we thought of strengthening the structure, especially the financing structure, moving towards paid-in capital. But going back to sustainability, I think I want to just share with investors here that in October this year, when during the leaders meeting, we plan to host a sessions with the investors in terms of to match with the climate projects or green projects that we have in the region. So perhaps I think please block your diary. I think we'll come back with the specific dates when this will happen. We're looking forward to have you there in KL, so that I think you can see in terms of what will be the financing needs in the region and where you can come in to invest and also to finance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I think on behalf of everyone here, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Treasury Secretary General and the Governor for their keen insights, and to the esteemed audience for your thought-provoking questions. And I think importantly, alongside these in-person outreaches that are a very deliberate, I think, effort on the part of the Government of Malaysia, are also efforts to make market information more accessible through channels like the Invest Malaysia portal. So what I hope is that really today's plenary provides you a starting point for this community of investors to kick the tires, to crunch the numbers, to question the corporates on upside to earnings visibility, and really to show that, you know, Malaysia is kind of trying to show that we're open for business again. And so on behalf of the Government of Malaysia and the organizers, thank you for joining us at this fireside, and we continue to look forward to these constructive and open dialogues in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.